Capitalism makes us believe that what is good for society is greed, exploited labor and competition, also in the way we cultivate the earth. There are endless global examples of how our increasingly industrialized way of crop cultivation has negative impacts on the climate. The increasingly ignorant use of land has had the largest relative impact on nature since the 70s, accounting for around 60% of carbon emissions, and it covers 1/3 of land, being the most excessive driver of land degradation. This monoculture threatens the earth with chemicals, gas emissions, loss of biodiversity, water usage, and it risks livelihoods. It affects biodiversity, which is essential to many crops due to pollinators, as well as being connected to all other elements of the ecosystem: groundwater, seas, rivers, forests, soil and air, and life within these. Our modern agriculture is intertwined with numerous global challenges: food security, health, mortality and equality, and it affects at least 10 of the 17 sustainable goals. It is the result of a capitalistic way of thinking, with quick fixes instead of long-term sustainable solutions, and where focus is global, not local.
Monoculture is also a fragile system, as a diverse set of crop cultivars is not used as a natural shield to combat pests and other such threats. One of these threats is disease. An example of one is stem rust, which is among one of the biggest threats to food security, as it has been a major disease for wheat worldwide. A strain of stem rust called stripe rust caused substantial losses of crop yields in the biggest sub-Saharan wheat producer, Ethiopia, back in 2010. They also saw a near total loss of Digalu wheat in their southern parts back in 2013. Another example of how badly monoculture has affected global food security and biodiversity comes from the Gros Michel. Because of railway projects in the late 1800s, banana production soared in Central America. However, it was based on only one cultivar of banana, the Gros Michel. The banana cultivar was found in much of Central America, but this monoculture came at a price, as it had died out due to a disease it was particularly vulnerable to, namely Panama disease. Fortunately, the Cavendish variety we know today was a resistant replacement. In the 1960s, however, Panama disease was also found in the Cavendish variety in Taiwan. This, however, did not scare them enough, even though no replacement existed for the Cavendish variety, and even today it threatens the global banana supply after wiping out many plantations in Asia. This is a problem created entirely from monoculture and begs the question: if one disease can wipe out an entire species, what will happen if there were no suitable replacement? Would the industry and livelihoods of millions plummet? And what of their food security?
These are just some of the examples of the effects of cultivating monocultures, how it pollutes and degrades, and how fragile the system is to things such as disease. Monocultivation is equally fragile to climate change. In Bagamoyo, Tanzania, the increase in temperatures have brought whiteflies, introducing new vira to the cassava crops. The biotech market, such as Monsanto, pushes for gene-modified seeds as a solution. This, however, is a costly affair, costing 1/5 of the yearly income for the farmers to chemically fertilize, leaving no money to send their kids to school. And that's without accounting for the cost of the seeds themselves, which would have to be repurchased each year. Furthermore, GM crops might be modified to target one specific issue, but it shows weakness in other areas, making it unsustainable. In the neighboring town of Nørregaard, they are using polyculture, raising a variety of crops alongside each other. This helps them provide backup if one crop fails. It incorporates sunflowers as a natural combatant against the whiteflies, and it uses compost instead of costly fertilizers. This is an example of a sustainable system, not reliant on capitalism and being environmentally friendly and self-sufficient. In contrast to the polyculture of Nørregaard, industrialized monoculture keeps farmers poor and reliant on the market, using highly polluting practices and procedures. With the subsequent environmental damages, the crop yield declines, hundreds of growing days will be lost, production will decline, available nutrition will equally drop, resulting in an increased equality gap affecting billions of people.
The farmers having to repurchase the GM seeds each year reveals a flawed, intended and insidious design, because around 1/3 of trade in the whole food system is between subsidiaries of the same giant companies, determining their own prices and profits, showcasing how capitalism has infiltrated and marketized the basic human right to food and a healthy planet. This is the result of oligopolies, if few owning a lot. Particularly the investments in off-season and exotic foods being shipped from developing countries and the development of biotech to use on the invested lands of the global south has been game-changing. Supermarkets are an interesting example of this, for they sustain a controlling market. They spread like wildfire, not only in richer areas, but also in poorer ones, outcompeting independent local food institutions with their low prices, favoring the big suppliers. Taking over and dominating land with monoculture, keeping the poor poor. It does not only happen locally, but in a globalized sense too. An example of which being the Ukrainian war, which compromised food security for millions, the effects of which are not limited to the populace of Ukraine alone. In particular, the war has disrupted the global food system. It has caused a drop in supplies coinciding with an increase in energy costs worldwide. Many countries are also reliant on Russian fertilizers for their agriculture, thereby being outcompeted in agricultural capabilities on the industrial side. Additionally, the war has limited the amount of food able to be procured by the global south, because global food prices have risen by 21% from 2021 to 2022, which has led global inflation to increase, with the countries most severely impacted being located in the Middle East, with many of them being among the top 10 importers of staple foods from both Russia and Ukraine. This highlights how oligarchic practices not only exist locally, but also internationally, wherein the food producers' capabilities suffer because of cheap and readily available food import opportunities, stifling the local food and fertilizer producing markets. In essence, being outcompeted by an international oligarchy in thought. Going back to the local sense, the case of the supermarket, it is also worth considering nutrition, for agriculture and nutrition are tightly intertwined, with monoculture being insufficient in supporting nutritional value, that is, the food you buy in supermarkets. Higher yields does not mean more nutrition.
Countless studies point to how a diversification of our cultivation of the planet is a sustainable and necessary solution, both economically, socially, and environmentally. Animals should not be separated from the fields. Crops must be mixed or rotated at least. Closed systems must be built where the natural abundant resources are used and where nothing goes to waste. We must return to the knowledge of the past, where the answer is not efficiency, gene modifications, hybrids, and market value, profit and maximization. Just see how Monsanto pushes the gene-modified seeds as a solution, but also makes money off this proposed solution. It robs the newer generation of farmers of the education they are owed because of the pricely cost of the products. To curb these problems, governments must make change attractive by incentivizing sustainable shifts, supporting those who are willing to make the change with smart subsidies. It is not enough to repurpose land or give pollution fees. We must rethink the whole system and how agriculture is approached. The way it is now, it is both damaging and fragile. By focusing on the global market, export and import, everyone becomes vulnerable, for no one is able to fully sustain themselves should those trade routes be compromised.
There has never been more hunger nor obesity in the world at the same time. This is a result of an industrialized system which is sold as being fixed by more industrialization. Monoculture is only good for companies producing fertilizer, fuel, shipping, and pesticides, but it destroys our ecosystem. It is evident that there is a need to change our current approach to agriculture and the global food distribution network if we are to ensure ourselves and our children a future without a time limit.